Hi, Tom.
Good to see you, Julie.
So here we are. We're back for another episode of How'd They Do It? Tech in the Cities. I thought this one was incredibly interesting and really important.
Yeah, we got the two top guys in education in New York State, the Chancellor of the SUNY system, Chancellor of the CUNY system, and they're sitting right in the middle of this AI revolution in education.
The state system and the city system represent hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers. And they do it, with limited resources. And if they're not thinking about new technologies right now, then our entire state and our entire city will get left behind.
And those schools have, lower middle class populations of kids, a lot of immigrant students. This is going to be like a new language, artificial intelligence. And people, if they don't speak this language, they're going to be not being able to compete in the 21st century marketplace. So the fact that SUNY and CUNY is leading the way in this is really fantastic.
Yeah, we had Chancellor John King from SUNY and Chancellor Félix Matos Rodríguez from CUNY. I've talked to both of them before we recorded this about AI. They're both really thinking hard about. They recognize the situation.
Right.
There's no putting their heads in the sand here.
Listen, and they know there's the upside and there's a downside. I mean, you're already seeing obviously, the downside in kids, handing in papers that are clearly written by ChatGPT. So they have to, look at the stars and they have to look at the floor.
Yeah, that's right. And I think they understand that the students in these systems are going to be adults in a world where AI tools are prevalent. And so while they're addressing, for instance, the cheating in the classrooms, they also need to be thinking about how we arm their students not just with the skills to work in the 21st century, but also the skills to just live in a world and understand what the tools are about.
Right, and figure out which majors are going to be the ones that are going to be automated, and which careers are going to be automated, so these kids don't all of a sudden move into obsolescent careers.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Before we jump into the show, I just want to give a big thanks to our sponsors: Uber, Spectrum, Civic Hall, TikTok, Google, and Snapchat. Thank you all for your generosity and for helping us get this podcast off the ground.
And here we go with the Chancellors.
Here we go.
Spectrum is committed to expanding digital opportunity to more people across the country. With the Spectrum Digital Education Grant, we're able to fund organizations that are working to better their local communities through access, training, and technology labs, including professional advancement opportunities for adults and educational workshops for seniors, as well as providing resources for students. We're Spectrum, working together to advance digital inclusion and empower the future. Service not available in all areas. Restrictions apply.
Fela, why don't you start and tell us a little bit quickly about yourself and about the CUNY system, and then John, I'd love to hear the same from you on SUNY.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much, Julie and Tom, for the invite. I couldn't think of a better way to begin my week than with some of my three favorite New Yorkers, right? You two, along with Chancellor King, and I've been blessed to be a faculty member and an administrator at the City University of New York. This is my 5th year as a chancellor of the CUNY system, and I know that John and I go through the times of people confusing our systems, but we are the City University of New York, 25 campuses. You can go from, we actually run 20 early college high schools, so you can actually go from the New York City public schools all the way through professional programs in law, medicine, and public health in the system, with a combination of community college, 7 of them, and 4-year colleges. So we are in every borough of New York City, and our campuses are anchor institutions in the system. We have about 230,000 students who are taking courses for credit, and we have another 200,000 or so who come to us to get what we call continuing education programs that offer a variety of courses. So delighted that our students are mostly from New York City, and our alumni stay in New York City. And I think they represent the incredible diversity that we have in the city. And that's why it's really indispensable that in this AI conversation, we make sure that every New Yorker gets a chance to fully take advantage and be prepared for what the future holds.
Fantastic.
Well, it's great to see everybody. Thank you, Tom and Julie, for the opportunity. It's always great to spend time with Chancellor Matos Rodríguez. The SUNY system is 64 campuses. 95% of New Yorkers live within 30 miles of a SUNY campus. 30 of those 64 are community colleges. The rest are four-year institutions and graduate institutions. We also have four major research universities: Stony Brook University, University at Buffalo, University at Albany, and Binghamton University. And those really are engines of research for the state of New York. I joined SUNY as chancellor in January of 2023 after having spent some time in Washington serving as Secretary of Education for President Obama, and glad to be back home in New York. The SUNY system serves about 370,000 students in degree programs and about 1.4 million students across all the range of our programs, from workforce development to continuing education to dual enrollment. And it's exciting to be here. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us. So Julie and I started this podcast to really explain to our listeners how things have been done in technology, both in New York and around the country. The title of our show is "How'd They Do It?" And we've obviously seen that the governor had some exciting announcements during the legislative session about Empire AI and how AI is going to be a big thing on the SUNY campuses, the CUNY campuses. Can you unpack for us what this is going to mean, both in the short term and the long term? AI is something that I think is on everybody's minds, but it has obviously vast implications for students. Chancellor King?
Sure. Well, we're very excited about Empire AI. I think it's a huge opportunity for New York to show leadership in this sector. The partnership will include our four SUNY research institutions, CUNY, as well as private colleges in the state: Cornell, NYU, Columbia, and RPI. And the idea is to create a space where researchers from across all of these New York institutions can figure out ways to leverage artificial intelligence for the public good. And we're particularly excited that the supercomputing site that we will develop will be at the University at Buffalo. So this ensures a public vehicle for researchers to access huge computing power that otherwise would only be accessed through big corporations like a Google or a Meta. And this will really set New York apart from other states. And we already have researchers hard at work on thinking about AI to solve problems in healthcare, agriculture, in advanced manufacturing. And we're excited about the governor's vision here. She will put in about $275 million in public funds, and that will be matched by another $125 million in private investment. And we look forward to that investment level even growing over time as people see the great work happening through Empire AI.
From our end, we're extremely excited about being a partner in in this Empire AI, and commend the governor for the vision, and then also the Assembly and the Senate for coming along and being supportive of that of those efforts. On our end, the Graduate Center will be sort of the anchor of the beginning of that partnership. We have sort of like this unique institution in which most of our graduate programs are in one campus, as opposed to a more traditional model in which they are spread around the individual campuses. We're very appreciative of the Simons Foundation. Gave us at the time what was the largest grant ever in the history of CUNY to bring in 25 researchers to dig deep into this AI to help us build on some of the capacity we already have, but also to build new capacity. And the Empire AI Consortium, and I think Tom and Julie would know this from your work in economic development. I think John knows it from his experience at SUNY and elsewhere. researchers really care about the research infrastructure. Sometimes we think that the higher salaries and some of those things, I mean, they play a role in recruiting people, but top researchers know that if they don't have an infrastructure of, in this case, computational power, technology, expertise, graduate students, that if they don't have that, they're not going to be able to do the cutting edge research that they need. And with this initiative, it makes it a lot easier for John and I to go out there to recruit the talent to come to New York, to want to be part of this. And also, I mean, we're never going to be able to compete with industry, right? I mean, that's never going to happen in terms of salary and resources. But to individuals who might want to be part of the research enterprise in a public institution, it allows us to say we're competitive. You will be able to conduct your research with us, and that, I think, is really, really huge, as the entire nation and the globe is fighting for this talent.
To me, that I think is the most interesting part of Empire AI, because it really kind of gets into the incentive structure. And people who are coming to do research at universities, whether public or private, they're already opting out of the private sector. They already have a different incentive structure. And I think that's incredibly important. John, you mentioned, I think, that currently it's just big companies who have the types of compute power, and that's okay. Like it's just a different thing. And it's a different incentive structure. It's a profit-based incentive structure, and that's okay. But what we need to do, I think, as public sector, as kind of like civic sector, is arm our institutions with the same tools so that people who want to do research, who are driven by that as humans, can do that. And so for me, this feels like such smart policy making. Because it feeds into what people want to do already. It just gives them the tools to do it better. So I'm incredibly excited, as you all know, about this.
Do you think the universities will sort of lead the effort to look into sort of the ethics of AI and try to make sure that it's used for good, obviously, and not for harm that some people are concerned about?
That's certainly a huge priority for our researchers. We've got a center at University of Buffalo that's been looking at things like deep fakes. They're very concerned about the effect that could have on elections. And so they've really become expert in how we can detect deep fakes and protect the integrity of information and communication. We also have researchers at University of Buffalo who are working on a fascinating project of AI for the public good, funded by NSF, where they're looking at how can AI help students with speech and language disabilities and what tools could be created. So I think very much our team sees this as an opportunity to make sure that this technology is advancing the public interest.
And to that end, I mean, I coincide totally with Chancellor King. I mean, a second part of that, and that's why I think systems such as SUNY and CUNY are so important in this ecosystem, right? I mean, he's been talking about how that research is going to transform all fields of work, right? He mentioned elections, he mentions assisting individuals with disabilities, it goes into medicine, it goes into all fields, right? And actually, that's one of the big challenges to universities as entities that provide that expertise, that we need to get good, not just at the obviously AI related things, but all of the things that we teach are going to be impacted by AI, from the English class, anthropology, sociology, to computer science. So we need to get better at how we integrate that into how do we impart knowledge to our students and how we prepare them for whatever field they're going to be out there, because their field is going to be impacted by AI. I mean, the joke that I use is that in the future, there's going to be an app that might replace John and I, right? You might be able to get an artificial intelligence chancellor to do the work that we do. But the other part too is the students that we serve. And that is really, really important as we move to AI, because we do know, unfortunately, that in many of these high-tech driven moments in history, sometimes the individuals that come from poorer backgrounds tend to be left behind. They tend to be more spectators. And what we want to make sure is that as this AI revolution advances, right, that not only we're keeping an eye on all the complicated ethical questions, but that we also make sure that it is benefiting the majority of the population. And that, I mean, nobody has a monopoly on that, but the fact that we are structured to serve those students, and that's the majority of the students that John has in SUNY and that I have at CUNY, I think also allows us to, as we think about this, to be really intentional about doing that for our students in a vast variety of ways.
I think there were two things there that I want to drill in with both of you, that and because both of the systems you lead just have enormous scale, and they have, whether it be Binghamton or the Graduate Center, they've got really kind of very high level, competitive, advanced programs, and there's also community colleges and distance learning involved. So it runs the gamut, is my point. And obviously, you're resource constrained, both of the systems. It's kind of the story of public education systems, whether we like it or not, which we don't, but here we are. So, I mean, how do you, this is moving quickly. And, if either of you wants to start, I'd love to hear from both of you a little bit, how you're thinking about meeting this moment when the change is so rapid and you're facing the need to act at scale so quickly.
Well, I nearly thought of then, where we might be more challenged on the resource constraint that you mentioned, right? And I think that both Chancellor King and I would love to have a lot more resources available for the really, really talented, smart students that we serve, right? But I also think our scale, if we are smart, we're going to be able to leverage to our advantage, right? Because there's going to be elements of this AI revolution in which being able to access a broad number of consumers, right? And or a lot of and you can slice that in many, many ways. It can be urban, it can be whatever it is that you're trying to target. Both systems have a number of them. So one of the things that we're trying to think is, are there opportunities for us to leverage that scale to come up to the individuals who are thinking about these issues writ large and to bring them to our advantage? And there might even be there opportunities to, again, in an ethical way, monetize, right? And in some partnerships and some contracts, some of the things that we do, because, I can see either, Chancellor King or I making a comment to, let's say, a vendor, say, well, if you're going to be interested in doing these things at scale in other places in higher ed, CUNY and SUNY are phenomenal places where to begin because of our scale, right? So hopefully some of those things will be ways in which we can leverage our scale, to your point, Julie, to advance our students.
Yeah, I agree with Chancellor Matos Rodríguez completely. I'd say there are sort of four things we're trying to do at SUNY. One is we already have in our general education framework a information literacy competency, and we're expanding that now to include artificial intelligence on the assumption that artificial intelligence is going to affect careers and areas of study across every discipline. And so we want to make sure that our students are prepared with a deep understanding of how artificial intelligence works. Second, we know artificial intelligence is going to play a role in teaching and learning. And so we've got a faculty task force that's thinking about and preparing materials for their colleagues about how do you use AI in the classroom? What are some of the risks? And there are significant risks, but also what are some of the opportunities, and how do we adapt assessment, for example? How do we adapt instructional methodologies using artificial intelligence? Third piece is we have a task force of about 60, 70 faculty members across our 4 research institutions thinking about what are interdisciplinary research projects that we can lead on. How does SUNY seize this moment to make sure that we are doing the research on the most cutting edge questions. You know, the relationship, for example, between atmospheric science and artificial intelligence. Can we predict extreme weather events? We've got great work happening at University at Albany on that front. And then the fourth thing I would say is really digging deeply into the workforce questions. You know, with our 30 community colleges, with our number of non-credit workforce development programs, we've got to think about what are the tools that folks need to be comfortable with as they go into their careers around artificial intelligence.
And let me, Judy, one more thing on scale, right? Which will be, I guess, a fifth component to the things that Chancellor King has outlined. It's also, I mean, it would also hopefully revolutionize the way that both systems use AI as employers, right? I mean, going back to your comment, Julie, on the fact that we're never going to have, I mean, you know, and the governor has been incredibly supportive in the last two budget rounds, but I mean, I don't think there's a universe where we're going to get all the advisors we think that we can possibly have on academic and, I mean, there's some elements in which, you know, we're not going to have that personnel. One of the potential good things of the promise of AI, right, is to be able to eliminate a lot of routinized tasks that allow free time and allow you to become more efficient. I mean, there is room in what we do at CUNY, certainly, to improve in that arena and to put that at the benefit of serving students. So that's another component of AI that we hope that you know, will be really helpful to us as we try to leverage all our resources and support our students.
Quick question, sort of in academic terms. I mean, obviously AI is going to affect every major, every department, but do you envision in the next couple of years that there's going to be a separate department just on AI and a separate major just in AI?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I think no doubt, and going back to Chancellor King coming on interdisciplinarity, that this is going to touch all departments, and there might be sub-programming in disciplines and departments. There might be new programs that emerge. I mean, I think one of the, you know, I guess the things that I'm trying to become comfortable in this ride is that there's something here about build as you go. And I think that, you know, we want to think about the guardrails, and there's clearly a lot of issues out there, a lot of unknowns. But this is not a scenario where you can say, until I have everything figured out, we're not going to move into the arena, because I think that is an incredibly losing strategy. So there has to be some comfort as to new ways of organizing thinking, new ways of organizing research, new ways of collaborating with industry, Tom. So I'm not sure how that's going to be structurally shaped. I think the future will tell. But clearly, as you see in some of the examples that we've talked about, is already beginning to permeate in our entire academic infrastructure.
I think that's right. I mean, certainly we already see lots of computer science students focusing their attention on artificial intelligence, but we're thinking about having at each of our university centers, our major research institutions, kind of an AI and society center that formally brings folks together to collaborate across disciplines. And there's so many cool opportunities. We've got one project at the University of Buffalo that's about indoor agriculture managed with artificial intelligence that's carefully sensing any changes in the condition of the plants and the conditions the plants are experiencing and adjusting. You know, so that's gonna, you know, you're gonna have your biology faculty member sitting next to someone who's focused on sustainable agriculture, sitting next to someone who's focused on computer science, collaborating in this project. And ideally, Empire AI fulfills our ambitions. They may be from 3 different higher ed institutions, all working together on this common research project.
Can I ask a really tactical question? Like just in the weeds. What about AI and cheating? What about GPT and cheating? Are you guys dealing with that in the institutions? I mean, are there like, I think we're having this really interesting conversation about kind of the future. But obviously, as you both have pointed out, we're also living in the present, and there's a lot of attention being paid to kind of specifics, things like cheating. Also, obviously, your students are older than high school students, so this is a little different, but there's a lot of talk about just the distraction that phones have in schools and that some of these tech tools have in schools. And I'm curious how you're thinking about kind of the near term.
I mean, obviously it's a concern, right? I don't think anybody can say that it is not. But I think about it at least in two lanes. I mean, a real concern about individuals who are not doing the work that they should be doing to learn, which is what homework and examination sort of verify, right? That you've been able to master whatever the competencies that class is supposed to give you, right? That you're taking a shortcut that doesn't allow you to get there, right? Or that you are attributing to yourself work that you didn't do, right? And that you're not acknowledging maybe some of the tools that you used to get there. I mean, those are the real problematic elements, right? I mean, writ large in cheating. I think that, and it's happened a number of times in education, we're all gonna have to adapt, right? If John and I went back to the classroom to teach next year, we probably have to teach very differently and think very differently about the homework that we used to give. I as a historian and John as an educator and coming from, from law. I mean, you just have to, because it's a different universe. So I think that part of the cheating question means that we have to work with the faculty, and we're trying to do that into thinking differently about, what kinds of tools and instruments you use in the classroom to make sure that the students are learning what they're supposed to what they're supposed to do. And there's some faculty already doing that. We have a number of our centers of teaching and learning who are working with faculty, and this is very specific to the disciplines, right? I mean, I think it's probably more complicated for people who are doing composition and English than people who are doing other fields. So we have faculty already working on that. So it is an invite to think differently about how you test, how you do homework, how you create projects. And that is always work and not always easy. And I think also, if I was back in the classroom, I'd be telling the students, you need to be able to navigate this new world of AI in whatever your passion takes you, right? And, I have a son who's a musician and somebody who's interested in engineering, very different, right? And they need to think about how what they do is going to be impacted by AI, right? But also saying, this tool is for you to enhance the skills that you bring. This tool is here to make better the things that you can do. And I think that's the ethos that we need to bring to the students, as opposed to cutting corners.
That's exactly right. I think, there are some very practical things like, you might say, well, we're going to bring back the blue book, right? We're going to have students come in and write rather than just relying on them doing that at home. We're going to think about different assessment methods. So we're going to have a classroom discussion. We're going to have a classroom debate so that we can see how students are owning what they have learned rather than just submitting something that they've maybe generated with ChatGPT, right? But then there's also helping students understand some of the risks of over-reliance on tools like ChatGPT, right? Helping students understand the phenomenon of hallucinations, right? Making sure they read about that lawyer, I think he was in Florida, who submitted a brief generated by ChatGPT and the cases were made up. Making sure that students understand the problem that the AI is working from a data set, and that data set may reflect some level of bias. right? It may be data only from a certain population. And so you could miss really important um, uh, analytic conclusions because you're using this biased data set. Students need to understand those intricacies of artificial intelligence. But, I think this is something that faculty have to work on at the higher ed level and at the high school level to make sure that we are living up to our mission of sparking critical thinking and not just having students, type in a question and print out the response they get from Chat.
I think
Can I
that's
ask a quick follow-up? Sorry,
Sure.
Tom.
Good, John.
Sorry, I'll be quick here. I just, you both have been in academia for most of your careers, for all of your careers, perhaps. I'm curious how you kind of stack rank this moment. Does it feel different than other moments, maybe when there were new technologies or new teaching trends? Or does it feel like, here we go again, it just keeps changing? It's hard for me to judge that even in all the work we do. Like this moment when we're all talking about AI. Is it
I
different?
don't think we know yet, but I'll say this: when I was in college, I remember when email first came out, and it was just like administrative announcements from the university, and I was like, I don't know, this thing doesn't seem that interesting. I don't think it's really going anywhere. And so I think in the early days, it's hard to tell what impact and innovation will have.
I mean, I do think, I mean, and actually, it hasn't changed now, right? I'm sure you're not excited about looking at the email in your inbox, right? So maybe some things don't change, but I mean, but I think the other point, Julie, what I do think is different is the level of angst, and I think, I mean, I see it in our students. I mean, I see it in our faculty. I mean, look at the strike by the screenwriters in LA. I mean, how much the AI component. So I think there's a level of angst, which at least I cannot recall anything in my experience that has had that at all different levels, right? And I think that you have a generation of students full of the desire to come contribute to the world, make the mark, do all the things that you want to do when you're young. But marked by the COVID pandemic, marked by a number of things that do not invite always the most optimistic outlook to what's out there. And I think that this AI thing adds an additional monkey wrench to how they see what the future for them will bring. And I think that that's different.
By the way, I think that lawyer you were referring to before, Chancellor King, was Michael Cohen's lawyer.
Ouch.
I'm just curious, are there any universities either in the United States or internationally that are using AI in a way that you've looked at it that is instructive or that might be an inspiration for both of your systems?
I think ASU, and I give Michael Crow a lot of credit, is thinking very aggressively about how to use AI as a tool, both to support student learning and also to create immersive experiences for students. So I think some of the innovations there are ones we certainly look forward to learning from.
I agree. I think Michael and so you, and I think there's pockets. You can think about Carnegie Mellon. I mean, I think we all have pockets where we see different things out there that we can learn from and shamelessly replicate, right, to the extent that we can. But also on this one, I'm going to say that there's plenty of also good things locally, right? I mean, we looked at, actually one of the good things about this Empire AI for us, right, is that it cements the partnerships and the work along with SUNY, right, with the hub at the University of Buffalo, who's been at, a center for innovation. There's a lot of good work that we've looked at in our campuses, for example, from UAlbany, in terms of thinking about the AI and the experience all across the campus, right? Less on the research. So I think that there's I mean, yeah, we're always looking to international and national examples, but on this one, I would also say I mean, there's a lot of good things happening locally that we can build on, and this additional investment in the entire AI infrastructure would allow us to even be more out there in front.
Are professors concerned, like you had mentioned before about the apps replacing the two of you, that they are going to be superseded by AI at some point, that professors may become less vital in the classroom?
Look, I think there's problem always with technology of sort of a certain irrational exuberance that maybe misses the importance of human interaction. You know, so you hear folks saying, well, why even have a teacher? Why have a tutor? You could just learn from the AI. Well, that doesn't really work that way. Like, yes, there's information that you can get. There's things that the AI can be used for to help you learn in certain ways. But there's a tremendous benefit to the relationships that are built in the classroom or that are built between a student and their tutor. And particularly, you know, Chancellor Matos Rodríguez and I have so many students who are first in their family to go to college. The relationships are just vital. And so I think of it as AI assisting faculty or advisors or tutors in providing support to students and maybe freeing up more time for the relationship building, but not replacing. But certainly there's fear, and then there are a lot of folks out there claiming that they found the AI solution to replace the human role in learning, and I'm very skeptical about that.
Well, I mean, I agree with Chancellor King. I mean, what I add to what he said is I think that I mean, there's one thing about content and information, and but I think also folks forget that education means different things to different people at different points on their life, right? So it might be to a more mature individual who's going for something very, very specific, very technical. It might be that there's something where the joy and the extra value that the human interaction brings is not as necessary, right? So that might be that exists. When you're talking about, you know, a bulk of the students we serve, right, who are those students who are coming out of high school and beginning the journey, education means a different thing too in terms of mentoring and a number of things that it's not just about the content in the classroom. We fulfill that role too. So clearly in that space, right? And you know, on our surveys, all our surveys indicate that the students, the most important point of contact, the most important voice in that journey is the faculty, continues to be the faculty. So I think that we're far away from that, and that probably, to be candid, that framing things in that more binary, right, is this going to replace, doesn't help us get the best out of what the human side gets to bring and the technology side needs to bring.
Will this impact sort of how you approach students about sort of workforce developments? Will every student who graduates from a SUNY or CUNY college have to have some coursework in AI before they graduate, do you think, down the road?
Well, I mean, I think if we get it right, it won't be framed that way. If we get it right, it would mean that every class that fellow took
We'll have it.
Was constructed around AI, and that's part of the tool set. Even if you major in anthropology or computer science or biochemistry, you know, if we get it right, it should be, and it goes back to, I think, the point that Chancellor King made about being embedded in the gen ed competencies that we want every student to have, right? So I think it's going to be less about that there's something there that has an AI stamp on it, although probably that would be very marketable and good for folks, right? I'm not going to take that away, but I think that if we get it right, it should be that the entire experience, independent of what you major, has been connected to that, and therefore you have that to move with you for your life journey.
I think that's right. You know, part of our goal in building AI into our information literacy, general education core competency is the idea that we want students to have a fluency with what AI is and how it works, so that they can make sense of it in their workplace context and in their life context, right? And I think it's still evolving exactly how we will integrate that into each discipline or workforce development program, but there's no question we need to.
Let me just say, I think that New York is a uniquely special place for many reasons, but not least of all because of these amazing research institutions and these amazing public university systems and these public schools. It's almost an embarrassment of riches. I don't think any state really even comes close, and SUNY and CUNY are both at the heart of that. And so I think it's incumbent upon all of us across the city and state to support your institutions in this moment. And it's why I'm so excited about Empire AI. It's why I'm so excited about other things that are happening all over the state. You know, in order to meet the moment, we've got to ensure that the private sector is doing its job, but also that the public sector, that the academic institutions, you know, only when you get that real kind of multidisciplinary flywheel effect will the entire state benefit. And I feel grateful to hear that you two are thinking about it analytically and with a forward-looking lens. And I feel grateful that the governor is, and you know, and we've spoken to her too about Empire AI specifically. And I just feel like it's an incredibly interesting time we're living in. And I'm glad that we're all in this kind of together and thinking about it.
Yeah, both of your answers remind me of something that Andrew Roche, who's a technology expert, once said to me. He said, technology is not a slice of the economy, it's the whole pie. And I think AI is a similar thing. It's gonna be in every discipline. So I guess your challenge as educators is to make sure that it's integrated into every course and every major that you have at your school, in your schools. Well,
I'm grateful for your time.
Thank you for a simple task, Tom.
Yeah,
What's that?
small things.
Thank you for making that very simple task for us to accomplish. Thank you.
Your job is going to get easier now.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for doing this.
Well, that was so interesting.
Yeah, no, that was great.
So thanks everyone for listening.
And thanks again to our sponsors and early supporters. Once again, Uber, Spectrum, Civic Hall, TikTok, Google, and Snapchat. Like and subscribe to our podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and iHeart, and tell us your feedback. We'd love to hear it.